Amelia was homeless, hungry, and hopeless, until a kind woman gave her a job, and everything began to change. But her journey wasn't going to be easy. Jealousy and lies were waiting in the shadows. A trap was set, and soon, Amelia lost it all. Will she rise again? Or is this truly the end of her story? Sit back, grab your popcorn, and let's find out. Once upon a time, in the heart of a bustling city, a young woman named Amelia was unknowingly about to make a decision that would change her life forever. It was a scorching afternoon. Amelia had just walked out of yet another job interview for a cleaning position. Rejected again. The streets buzzed with chaos, honking cars, traders shouting, people rushing past in every direction. As she made her way down the sidewalk, something unusual caught her attention. Just a few steps ahead, a well-dressed woman was pulling out her phone from her handbag, and unknowingly, a thick bundle of cash slipped out and fell to the ground. Amelia's heart skipped. Several people noticed it. Some glanced and turned away, others pretended not to see. No one stopped. But Amelia didn't hesitate. She bent down, picked up the money, and quickly walked after the woman. "Excuse me, Ma," she called out. "You dropped this." The woman turned around, surprised. Her eyes went from Amelia's face to the money in her hand. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then, placing a hand on her chest, she gasped. "Oh my goodness. I didn't even realize," she said. Amelia stretched the bundle towards her. "Here, Ma." The woman took it slowly, still looking at her with disbelief. "Thank you so much, my dear. What's your name?" "Amelia, Ma." A smile spread across the woman's face. "You're a good person, Amelia. It's rare to see honesty like this these days." Amelia smiled shyly. "I couldn't keep something that isn't mine, Ma." The woman, Madame Laura, nodded, clearly impressed. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a smaller bundle of cash. "Take this, for your kindness." Amelia immediately shook her head. "No, Ma. I don't want anything." Madame Laura raised a curious brow. "Why not?" "Kindness shouldn't be bought, Ma," Amelia said simply. Madame Laura was silent for a moment, just looking at her. Then, she smiled again. "You're very wise. What do you do, Amelia?" Amelia hesitated. She didn't want to lie, so she spoke the truth. "I don't have a job, Ma. I just left an interview, but they said I wasn't qualified." Madame Laura sighed. "You know what? I'll hire you." Amelia blinked in disbelief. "Ma!" Madame Laura reached into her bag again, took out a business card, and gently placed it in Amelia's hand. "Come to my office tomorrow." Amelia stared at the card. Her fingers gripped it tightly like it was made of gold. She had no idea that this opportunity would lead to a life she never imagined, but not in the way she thought. The next morning, Amelia woke up before sunrise. Sleep had barely touched her eyes. She wore her best clothes and even borrowed her neighbor's small handbag just to look a little more formal. After whispering a quick prayer, she headed out with hope burning quietly in her chest. When she reached the company, she stood outside for a moment, staring at the grand building. It was beautiful, polished, professional. The kind of place where everyone spoke fluent English and wore shiny shoes. "God, please don't let me embarrass myself today," she whispered. She walked in and approached the front desk, where a young woman with long nails and heavy makeup was busy scrolling through her phone. "Good morning, Ma. Please, I'm here to see Madame Laura," Amelia said politely. The receptionist slowly lifted her eyes, scanning Amelia from head to toe. Her expression changed into a smirk, and she let out a short laugh. "You? You're here to see Madame Laura?" Are you sure you're in the right place? Amelia's smile faded, but she kept her calm. Yes, Ma. She asked me to come. She held out the business card Madame Laura had given her, but the receptionist didn't even bother to look at it. Lillian leaned on the counter, wearing a sly smile. Listen, this isn't a psychiatric hospital. We don't treat mad people here. Amelia felt a chill run through her. Whispers filled the room as people in the reception turned to look at her. Some chuckled, others watched with curiosity. But, Madame Laura, she began to explain. Lillian suddenly snatched the card from her hand and tossed it aside like trash. Please leave now before I call security. Amelia bent down, her hands trembling as she picked up the card. Maybe she should go. Maybe this was all a mistake. Amelia, a strong, familiar voice called out. She looked up. Madame Laura stood at the entrance, smiling warmly. Amelia quickly straightened. Good morning, Ma. You came. I like that, very punctual, Madame Laura said, walking over. Amelia smiled with relief, but Lillian's face froze, her mouth slightly open. Madame Laura turned to her. Is there a problem? Lillian forced a quick, awkward smile. No, Ma. I was just welcoming her. Though Madame Laura looked unconvinced, she said nothing more. Instead, she turned to Amelia. From today, you're my new personal assistant. The reception area fell silent. Lillian's fake smile vanished. What? She muttered under her breath. Madame Laura handed Amelia a small notepad and pen. Lillian will show you around and teach you how to use a computer. Amelia's heart raced. A computer? She had never even touched one. Yes, Ma. Thank you, Ma, she replied with a small bow. Lillian's face tensed, but she managed another stiff smile. Inside, she was boiling. That night, Lillian sat in a bar, silently stirring her drink. Her jaw was tight with anger. Brenda, her best friend, sat across from her, nibbling on fried meat and licking her fingers. That girl is taking the position I worked so hard for, Lillian said, slamming the table. Brenda raised a brow. Which girl? That Amelia, or whatever her name is, Lillian growled. Brenda laughed. You mean the one that looks like she just came out of the village? Exactly. Lillian snapped. Can you believe Madame Laura just picked her off the street and made her personal assistant? Meanwhile, I've been here for years without any promotion. Brenda leaned forward. So what message is she trying to send? That a random street girl can walk in and get a job like that? What is this, an orphanage? Lillian clenched her glass. I need to act fast. That girl must leave this office. Brenda leaned back, smiling coolly. Then you're talking to the right person. Lillian narrowed her eyes. You have an idea? Brenda nodded, leaned in, and whispered her plan. As Lillian listened, a slow, dangerous smile crept across her face. Amelia wouldn't even see it coming. The very next day, Lillian began to make Amelia's work unbearable. One evening, as the office emptied out and most staff had already packed up to leave, Lillian walked over to Amelia's desk, dropping a heavy stack of files with a loud thud. Sort these alphabetically. I want them on my desk first thing in the morning. Amelia stared at the pile, her heart sinking. She was exhausted and it was already past closing time. Lillian, it's quite late, she said softly. Can't it wait till morning? Lillian smirked. Oh? I thought you were hardworking. Or are you just another lazy fake? Amelia bit her lip. Her chest stung, but she refused to let it show. Okay. I'll do it, she said quietly. Lillian walked away satisfied. Alone in the quiet office, Amelia looked at the towering pile of files. Each one felt heavier than the last. She sighed deeply and got to work, aware that Lillian was watching her from a distance, hoping she'd fail. But she wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Still, deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. One afternoon, while Madame Laura was occupied in her office, Lillian called Amelia over. "Go and buy food for me," she said firmly. Amelia hesitated. She remembered Madame Laura's instructions clearly, never to leave the office without permission. "But said I shouldn't leave without telling her first," Amelia said gently. Lillian's eyes turned sharp. She leaned in closer. "So you're refusing to obey me now?" Amelia swallowed hard. "No, Ma," she said quickly, feeling caught in a trap. With a heavy heart, she stepped out to get the food, anxiety gripping her chest. She hated going against the rules, but she didn't know what else to do. When she returned, her heart sank. Madame Laura stood at the entrance, waiting. "Where were you?" she asked, not angry, but clearly disappointed. Amelia's heart sank. She looked at Lillian, silently begging her to speak up and explain, but Lillian simply folded her arms and stood tall, her face smug, as if everything was unfolding exactly as she'd planned. Amelia suddenly felt small, ashamed. I went to buy food for Lillian," she said quietly, the words heavy with fear, like she was already guilty. Madame Laura's frown deepened, disappointment clear in her eyes. "Don't ever leave without informing me again," she said sharply, her voice cold. Amelia nodded quickly, her cheeks burning. "I'm sorry, Ma," she whispered, hoping Madame Laura could see that she hadn't meant to break any rule. Lillian, meanwhile, was smiling inside. Everything was going perfectly. With every tiny push, she was tightening the trap around Amelia. Then, everything began to spiral when a large sum of money suddenly went missing from the office. It had seemed like a normal day. Madame Laura had just secured a payment, 16 million naira, for a major contract. But when she checked her account, her expression changed. The money was gone. Her voice rose with panic and fury. "Who had access to my files?" People gathered, whispering. Lillian, standing nearby, sensed her moment. She glanced at Brenda across the room and muttered, "Watch this." Her eyes sparkled with twisted delight. Without hesitation, she pointed at Amelia. "She was the last person with your documents," Lillian declared, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Madame Laura turned swiftly to Amelia, her eyes narrowed. "Did you touch my money?" Her voice was sharp, full of suspicion. Amelia's heart thudded in her chest. "No, Ma. I would never," she stammered, trying to stay calm, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Madame Laura didn't flinch. Her face was unreadable. "Get out," she snapped. Amelia froze. The floor beneath her felt like it had vanished. She wanted to explain, to say she was innocent, but her voice caught in her throat. The room was silent. The walls felt like they were closing in. Lillian stood off to the side, a satisfied smile growing on her face. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. Amelia stumbled backward, dazed and terrified. She had just gotten this chance, this job that meant everything, and now it was crumbling before her eyes. Dropping to her knees, she looked up at Madame Laura, her voice trembling. "Please, Ma. I didn't steal anything. I swear on my life." Her words cracked with desperation, but Madame Laura's expression didn't change. Lillian remained folded in her seat, watching the scene with a cold amusement, as if it was some kind of entertainment. Madame Laura's voice was firm. "Leave before I call security." That was it. Amelia's heart shattered. Just yesterday she had a future. Now, she was being thrown out, discarded like she didn't matter. She turned slowly, her eyes scanning the faces of the other staff. They watched silently. No one dared speak. No one dared defend her. She wiped her face with her sleeve, but the tears wouldn't stop. When she looked at Lillian one last time, the smirk on her face told her everything. This had been planned. It was never about the mistake. It was never about the money. It was a trap from the beginning. Amelia walked out of the office, tears streaming down her face. Night fell, and she had nowhere to go. She wandered the streets of Abuja, exhausted and hungry, feeling like the world was too vast and she was too insignificant. Eventually, she found a small space between two market stalls. The ground was rough, the air cold, but she had no other choice. Curling up in the corner, she hugged her knees tightly. Back at the office, Lillian and Brenda shared a triumphant laugh, their hands slapping together in a high five. "She's finally gone," Brenda said through a chuckle. Lillian grinned. She thought she was clever. Let her beg on the streets now, that's where she belongs. But fate had something different in store. 2 weeks passed. The office carried on as if Amelia had never existed. Lillian moved through the halls with pride, relishing her so-called victory. Then, one afternoon, Madame Laura's phone rang. "Hello, madam," the banker said on the other end. "We have news about the missing money." Madame Laura sat upright. "Yes? Did you find anything?" The banker's next words froze her blood. "Your account was hacked. The money was stolen by an outsider. None of your staff were involved." Madame Laura felt the floor shift beneath her. "You're saying Amelia was innocent?" "Yes, madam. We've caught the real thief. The money will be returned." She dropped the phone onto her desk, her hands trembling. She had thrown an innocent girl into the streets. Covering her face, she struggled to breathe. How had she been so blind? How had she believed such a cruel lie? She looked up suddenly. "Where is Amelia?" No one in the office had an answer. Determined to make things right, Madame Laura drove through the crowded market, her heart heavy with guilt. She scanned every corner, searching for a face she feared she might not recognize anymore. Then, she saw her, sitting near a small stall, hugging her knees. Her clothes were dusty, her face drained of light. She no longer resembled the bright young woman who once walked confidently into the office, full of dreams. Madame Laura stepped out of the car. "Amelia," she called gently. Amelia's head lifted. Her eyes widened. "Ma!" Madame Laura walked closer and sat beside her on the rough ground. People stared, but she didn't care. "I was wrong," she said quietly. "I should have believed you." Amelia's lips trembled as tears returned to her eyes. "It's okay, Ma." Madame Laura reached for her hand. "Come back," she paused, "not as my assistant, but as my business partner." Amelia blinked in disbelief. "What?" "You're smart, hardworking, and honest. That's exactly what I need." Amelia covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Ma, I don't know what to say." "Just say yes." For a moment, Amelia couldn't speak. Then, in a whisper, she said, "Yes." Back at the office, Lillian leaned in her chair, smiling to herself. Life was good. Amelia was gone. Madame Laura trusted her, and everything was under her control. Stretching, she spoke into the phone. "Brenda, I told you. When you handle things properly, no one suspects a thing." Brenda laughed. "You're amazing, babe. Enjoy your win." Just then, the office door burst open. Madame Laura stepped in, her heels striking the floor sharply. Lillian stood up quickly. "Good morning, Ma." Madame Laura didn't return the greeting. "Lillian," she said firmly, pack your things. You're fired." The word struck like thunder. "Ma!" Lillian stammered, forcing a nervous laugh. "This has to be a joke." Madame Laura folded her arms. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Lillian's smile vanished. "Ma, I don't understand. You tried to ruin someone who did nothing to you. I can't work with someone like that." Lillian's knees buckled. "Please, Ma. I was only trying to help." Madame Laura raised her hand. "Security." Two guards stepped forward. Lillian grabbed the edge of the table. "Please, Ma, I beg you. I have nowhere to go." Madame Laura turned her back. "Take her out." The security guards gripped her arms. "No. Madame Laura, please. One more chance." But it was too late. Her screams echoed through the office as she was dragged away. Months passed. Amelia was no longer the broken girl who once slept on hard floors and cried herself to sleep. She had risen. Now, she walked into the office in a sleek suit, her stride confident, her head high. Whispers followed her as she passed. "Is that not Amelia? The one who was thrown out? She looks like a real boss now." Amelia reached Madame Laura's office and knocked. "Come in," the familiar voice called. She stepped inside, her heart beating fast. Madame Laura smiled and gestured to a seat. "Are you ready?" Amelia nodded. "Yes, Ma." Madame Laura handed her a document. "Because today, you sign as co-owner of this company." Amelia's hand shook as she took the pen. Her eyes welled with emotion. "Ma, I don't even know how to thank you." Madame Laura gave a small smile. "Don't thank me. Just promise to help someone else when the time comes." Amelia nodded, tears escaping. "I will." With one signature, the girl who was once abandoned and accused became a CEO. A year later, Amelia sat behind the same desk that once belonged to Madame Laura. A young girl stood nervously in front of her, hands trembling. Her clothes were clean but worn. She reminded Amelia of herself. "What's your name?" Amelia asked gently. "Juliet, Ma," the girl whispered. Amelia picked up her CV. It was nearly blank, no experience, no qualifications. "Why should I hire you, Juliet?" The girl swallowed. "I'll work really hard, Ma. I just need a chance." Amelia leaned back, smiling. "You're hired." Juliet's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," Amelia replied. "Someone once gave me a chance. Now it's my turn to do the same." Juliet covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Thank you, Ma. Thank you." As Amelia watched her wipe her tears, she knew she had made the right choice. The cycle of kindness had to continue. Amelia's story is a reminder. Kindness can transform a life, while jealousy and wickedness can ruin one. No matter how hard people try to bring you down, the truth will always rise. And when it does, those who once looked down on you will be forced to watch you shine. What did you learn from Amelia's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And guess what? An even more powerful story is coming soon. Make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you're the first to know when it drops. If you enjoyed this story, tap the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.